Can you teach me how to make jjajangmyeon? I really want to learn. It's so good.
No, absolutely not.
Come on, don't you want to help people?
Not you.
I'll pay you.
How much?
20.
40.
Okay. Sick, dude. What are you doing? What?
Hi everybody! Today I'm going to show you how to make Korean jjajangmyeon.
One of the favorite dishes to eat by locals in Korea is easily jjajangmyeon. It's a very simple noodle dish based in a sauce that's made from black bean paste. The beans give it a very unique flavor profile with a kind of jammy and fruity sweetness to it. It's actually quite simple to make at home. You can do it on a weeknight. I'll show you how I do mine. I start by prepping all my veggies and ingredients first because this is a pretty quick stir fry. I'm going to try to dice everything into kind of the same size, and I want it to be slightly big. Not a small dice that'll melt into the sauce, but something that'll stand out a bit more, something like a ½ inch. So I'm doing that with like 3/4 of a yellow onion. I would use the whole thing if I had it. Then I have a Korean radish, which are massive, so I'm just taking a chunk of that off to make maybe a cup or a cup and a half of chunks. Of course, make sure you peel it first. Then I've got 1 zucchini, which is getting the same treatment. I'm also going to peel and dice 1 russet potato, but I'm going to wait until right before cooking to do that so it doesn't oxidize and brown too much. And then I've got between like a ½ and 3/4 of a pound of pork belly. My Korean market sells them pre-sliced like this, kind of like thick bacon slices. They're all-purpose use pretty much for any Korean dish that uses pork belly. I'm also dicing those to a similar size as everything else. And that's pretty much it. We can start cooking now. I'm going to grab my carbon steel wok. It's going to be the easiest thing to cook a dish like this in, but any wide and large pan would work. Of course, I flip the grates on my gas stove to get more flames around the wok when I use it. There's a couple ways you can do this. A lot of people just start with the meat and veggies and then start cooking that way. But what I want to do first is fry off the bean paste by itself. And this is called chunjang, which is black bean paste. This is the brand that my Korean market offers, but your Asian market should have something similar. So a lot of recipes will just have you add this to the simmering veggies and meat right before you add the water to deglaze. But I want to emphasize frying this on its own to get its own Maillard reaction to really punch home that flavor. And I got several tips from my friend Ava, which I really appreciate you. And one of those is using some lard or beef tallow to fry off this paste in. I sometimes keep bacon fat or pork fat in my fridge, but I don't have any right now. I do, however, have some trimmings from the Wagyu rib roast that I bought 3 years ago. I finally rendered that down into a tallow, which you can see in my short from Wednesday. If you don't have any kind of meat fat, then of course a neutral oil would work, but it wouldn't be as good. So I'm going to melt a few tablespoons of that Wagyu tallow in my wok. When it's smoking, I'll lower the heat a bit and then add about 6 tablespoons or a ½ cup of this black bean paste. It only needs a minute or two to fry, so just stir it around and make sure it's not sticking and burning. You know it's done when it starts to curdle and look like this, which happens pretty quickly, so remove it. And again, that's just going to amplify the flavor that this bean paste brings to this dish, which it is the signature ingredient, so go big or go home. Once I remove that, I quickly clean out my wok to start over, which is what I want to do because I want it to be cooled down a bit to add my pork belly. If you've ever heard to start bacon in a room temperature pan, that's good to help the fat render, which is what we want to do here. And as that renders, the heat will quickly rise and start to sear the meat. After a few minutes of searing on one side, you can start stirring it around to get browning all around. I added a pinch of salt at some point and let these cook for about 5 minutes until I got this nice browning all around. At that point, we can add in our diced yellow onion and start to fry that as well. Another tip I got was to add in some ginger to fry with the onions. I'm just microplaning in a couple of teaspoons of that. And by the way, this is one of the few rare Korean dishes that doesn't have garlic as one of the ingredients. I don't know, I figured that maybe because this is a Chinese-Korean fusion dish. Anyway, I'm frying all that and stirring it around for a couple of minutes. And then I want to add in the harder vegetables that take longer to cook, which are the radish and potato. I let those cook dry like that for about 5 minutes, and then I add the zucchini. All these vegetables will release some water, by the way, which you can use to help scrape off the bottom as you go. Now at this point is where a lot of recipes would have you make a hole in the center and then fry the bean paste for a couple minutes before deglazing. But since we've already fried ours to perfection, we can just add the paste on top of everything, mix it around just a bit to get a head start, and then add in about 2½ cups of water. You could probably go anywhere between 2 and 3 cups of water depending on how much you want to serve and how thick you like it. But stir vigorously to dissolve the bean paste and just get everything mixed. That'll quickly come up to a boil and then start to braise and cook down everything inside. You're going to basically let this boil like that and stir occasionally until the potato and or radish are tender. They're going to be your hardest indicators of when your sauce is done, so just test them occasionally until they're where you want them. And as that's boiling, I'll start to cook my noodles, and you can find various different types at your Asian market. I think there's some Korean brands that are made specifically for jjajangmyeon. Mine didn't have that, so they recommended using this udon, which is on the thicker side of noodles. I'm just tossing those into boiling water and cooking those per the package instructions. I would recommend only boil the noodles for the servings that you're trying to serve right now. Fresher noodles are always better, and you can always just whip up a batch of noodles when you want to eat the rest. So I think my sauce simmered for about 15 to 20 minutes before the potato was tender. The boiling also helps reduce and thicken it, but we're going to take that a little further. I have a couple teaspoons of potato starch here, but of course cornstarch would work as well. I'm also adding a couple teaspoons of sugar and then a couple teaspoons of water and dissolving all of that. This is the well-known starch slurry, which quickly thickens any kind of stir-fry sauce like this. Dump in a little bit at a time and stir it around until you get the thickness that you want. I think gloopy is the best adjective to describe what you want out of this sauce. Even though it sounds gross, that thickness is what you want over the noodles. If you make it too thick, you can always add a splash of water to get it thinner to where you want it. And then we can season this to taste, and I'm just using a pinch of MSG. Of course, add salt to your liking, and then sugar as well. I like mine pretty sweet, so I added a little bit more sugar here. But that's it. That's a quick and easy jjajangmyeon sauce, and I think you'd love it if you tried it. Strain those noodles and get them off to the side of a bowl. It's traditional to serve this kind of side by side, so I'm trying to ladle the sauce to the other side of the bowl. It's so deeply colored, which makes sense because it's so deeply flavored. You're supposed to garnish this with some danmuji. That's yellow pickled radish, and you can always find packages like this at your Korean market. And then I took a cucumber and sliced it into some small matchsticks. Those are also traditional to add on top. You could sprinkle some gochugaru if you have it, and I just didn't do it here. There's not much else to say. This is just a beautiful, comforting dish that I wish I had tried sooner. I can't wait any longer, so let's get to the taste test.
Legitimately, one of the best meals I had during my trip to Korea was jjajangmyeon. It was just this tiny diner-style shop, really quick eats, but the results are amazing. I think that's exactly what you'd want in a bowl of this. Let me get this mixed around a bit. The noodles have been sitting a while, so they're clumping together. This is insane. All right, 잘 먹겠습니다. That is comfort food at its finest. Just a very sweet and fatty sauce. It's really nothing like any kind of pasta sauce you'd be used to. The black beans give off that Asian dessert vibe, that not too sweet, but still sweet. They bring a little bit of earthiness as well. These are just incredible. You can definitely taste the meatiness of the pork belly, but also that wagyu fat that we fried the chunjang in. Highly recommend doing that step. If you don't have any kind of meat fat, then doing neutral oil would be fine, but just not as good. I've been told that this dish is really hard to recreate at home. It just never comes out the same as you get at really good restaurants. And I kind of feel that this definitely isn't as good as what I had in Korea. But living here with little access to a dish like this, I think this stands in pretty well. And of course, danmuji is the perfect pairing for this. I hope I did this dish at least a little justice. If you have any more tips for me, please let me know. But if you've never tried this, try to find it around you at a restaurant or try to make it yourself. It's really worth it. But that's gonna do it for me today. Thank you all for watching, be blessed, and I'll see you next time. I hope this stuff doesn't stain my teeth.